The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional groan of old pipes. It was 2:47 a.m. when I woke, my throat dry and scratchy, demanding water. I'd been living with Marcus for 8 months now, and I thought I knew his rhythms, the sound of his footsteps, the particular way he closed doors, the hours he kept. I was wrong. As I shuffled down the hallway in my worn pajama pants, I noticed a sliver of light beneath Marcus's door. That wasn't unusual. He often fell asleep with his lamp on, reading one of those thick fantasy novels he loved. What made me pause was the sound, low voices, a murmur I couldn't quite make out, and then something that sounded like laughter, soft and intimate. I should have gone back to my room, I should have respected his privacy. But something rooted me to that spot in the hallway, my hand frozen halfway to the kitchen, my heart suddenly beating faster than it should have been. The door wasn't completely closed. Through the gap no more than 2 inches wide, I could see into his room. The lamp cast a warm, amber glow across the space, and there, on Marcus's bed, were two figures. Marcus and another man. They weren't doing anything scandalous, not really. Marcus was sitting up against his headboard, wearing a white t-shirt that made his dark skin look even richer in the lamplight. The other man, someone I'd never seen before with lighter brown skin and close-cropped hair, was lying with his head on Marcus's chest. Marcus's hand was gently stroking the man's shoulder, his fingers tracing lazy patterns that seemed both casual and profoundly tender. They were talking in voices too low for me to hear the words, but I could hear the cadence, the give and take, the easy intimacy. Then Marcus laughed at something the other man said, and the sound did something strange to my chest. It was a laugh I'd never heard from him before, unguarded and genuine in a way that made me feel like an intruder. Because I was an intruder. I stepped back quickly, my heart hammering now for entirely different reasons. I retreated to my room without the water I'd wanted, closing my door as quietly as possible and standing there in the darkness, trying to understand what I was feeling. Surprise, certainly. In 8 months of living together, Marcus had never mentioned dating anyone. He never brought people home. I'd assumed he was single, maybe not interested in dating, perhaps too focused on his graduate program in architecture to make time for romance. But it wasn't just surprise. There was something else, something darker and more complicated that twisted in my stomach like guilt. It took me several minutes of standing there, listening to the sound of my own breathing before I could name it. Jealousy. I was jealous. The realization hit me like cold water. I climbed back into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin, and stared at the ceiling. When had this happened? When had Marcus become more than just my roommate, more than the guy I split rent with and occasionally shared takeout dinners with while we watched cooking shows neither of us could actually replicate? I thought back over the past 8 months, searching for the moment when things had changed. But there wasn't one moment, it had been gradual, a slow accumulation of small things. The way he'd helped me move in, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs without complaint. The time I'd had food poisoning and he'd brought me saltines and ginger ale, checking on me every few hours with genuine concern. The Tuesday nights that had become our unofficial tradition, where we'd cook dinner together, our attempts usually ending in laughter and ordering pizza instead. The way he smiled at me sometimes, like he was genuinely happy I existed. I'd written it all off as friendship, as the natural camaraderie of people who lived together and got along well. But now, lying in the dark with the image of Marcus and that other man burned into my mind, I couldn't deny it anymore. I had feelings for Marcus, real feelings, the kind that made my stomach flip when he walked into a room, the kind that made me disappointed on nights when he stayed late at the studio working on his projects, the kind that made me save funny stories from my day just to see him laugh. And I'd just discovered he was gay or bisexual or something other than straight, at the exact same moment I'd discovered he was seeing someone else. The cosmic timing would have been funny if it hadn't felt like a punch to the gut. I must have eventually fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, my alarm was blaring. I dragged myself out of bed, groggy and disoriented, the events of the night before feeling almost dreamlike. Had it really happened? Had I really seen what I thought I'd seen? When I emerged from my room, showered and dressed for work, Marcus was in the kitchen making coffee. He was wearing his usual morning outfit, basketball shorts and a t-shirt from some 5K he'd run 2 years ago. His hair was still messy from sleep, and there was no sign of his overnight guest. "Morning," he said, glancing up with a smile. "Coffee's almost ready." "Thanks," I managed my voice rough. He looked at me more closely. "You okay? You look tired." Didn't sleep well, I said, which was absolutely true. That sucks. We've got some melatonin in the bathroom cabinet if you want to try that tonight. He poured 2 cups of coffee, adding cream and sugar to mine without asking because he knew how I took it. The gesture was so familiar, so Marcus, that it made my chest ache. Thanks, I said again, taking the mug. We stood there in comfortable silence, sipping our coffee as morning light filtered through the kitchen window. It was a scene we'd repeated hundreds of times, and Marcus seemed completely at ease, giving no indication that anything unusual had happened last night. Should I say something, acknowledge what I'd seen, pretend I hadn't seen anything at all? I decided on the latter. It wasn't my business. Marcus was entitled to his privacy, to his romantic life, to whatever he wanted to keep separate from his roommate. Even if that roommate had suddenly, inconveniently, impossibly fallen for him. I've got a late night tonight, Marcus said, rinsing his mug in the sink. Studio review for one of my projects. I probably won't be home until 9 or 10. No problem, I said. I'll save you some dinner if I cook. He grinned. You mean you'll save me some of the takeout you order because cooking didn't work out? Despite everything, I felt myself smile back. Exactly. He grabbed his backpack and headed for the door but paused with his hand on the knob. Hey, David. Yes. Thanks for being a great roommate. I know I don't say it enough, but I really lucked out with you. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him, leaving me standing in the kitchen with my coffee and my confused feelings and the echo of his words that somehow made everything both better and worse. I couldn't stop thinking about it. For the next 3 days, that image of Marcus and the mystery man haunted me. I found myself distracted at work, staring at my computer screen without seeing the code I was supposed to be debugging. My coworkers noticed. Earth to David, my colleague Sarah said, waving a hand in front of my face during our lunch break. You've been spacing out all week. What's going on? I couldn't exactly tell her the truth. Sarah was great, but explaining that I'd developed feelings for my male roommate whom I'd just discovered was seeing another man felt like too much vulnerability for a lunch break. Just tired, I said, haven't been sleeping well. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me but wasn't going to push. Well, maybe try to be present for the afternoon meeting. Johnson's been in a mood all week and you don't want to give him a reason to focus on you. She was right about that. I forced myself to concentrate for the rest of the day, but the moment I was heading home, my thoughts drifted back to Marcus. The thing was, I'd never seriously questioned my sexuality before. I'd dated women throughout college and my early 20s. Not extensively, I'd never been the serial dating type, but enough to assume I was straight. I'd had a girlfriend for most of my senior year, Jessica, and while we'd eventually broken up amicably, it had felt real at the time. But I'd also never felt about Jessica the way I was apparently feeling about Marcus. That realization was unsettling in ways I didn't quite know how to process. Was I gay, bisexual, or was this just Marcus-specific, something about him in particular that had awakened feelings I didn't know I had? I didn't have answers, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. When I got home that evening, Marcus was already there, sprawled on the couch with his laptop balanced on his knees, working on what looked like a 3D rendering of a building. Hey, he said without looking up, how was work? Fine's boring. I dropped my bag by the door and headed to the kitchen for water. What are you working on? Final project for my design studio. It's due next week and I'm way behind. He finally looked up and I saw the tiredness in his eyes. I might be a zombie for the next few days, fair warning. Want me to bring you coffee, food, moral support? He smiled and there it was again, that flip in my stomach. All of the above, you're the best. I ordered Thai food and spent the evening sitting in the armchair with a book while Marcus worked. We didn't talk much, but it felt comfortable, companionable. A few times I looked up from my book to find him completely absorbed in his work, his brow furrowed in concentration, occasionally muttering to himself about load-bearing walls or sight lines or other architectural concepts I didn't fully understand. He was beautiful when he was focused like this. I'd never really let myself think that before, but now that the dam had broken, I couldn't stop noticing. The elegant lines of his face, the way his hands moved gracefully across his laptop's trackpad, the occasional smile when he figured something out. Around 11, he finally closed his laptop with a groan. I need to sleep or my brain's going to melt. Sounds wise. I'd given up on my book an hour ago and had been mindlessly scrolling through my phone. Marcus stretched his shirt riding up slightly to reveal a strip of his stomach. I looked away quickly. "Hey David," he said as he gathered up his things. "Yes." "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right? You've seemed kind of off this week." My heart rate kicked up. Did he know? Had he somehow figured out what I'd seen, or worse, what I was feeling? "I'm fine," I said, probably too quickly. "Just work stress, you know how it is." He studied me for a moment and I had the uncomfortable feeling he could see right through me, but finally he nodded. "Okay, but I'm here if you need to talk, you know that, right?" "I know, same goes for you." Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or uncertainty, but then he smiled. "Thanks man, sleep well." After he disappeared into his room, I sat there for a long time, my phone forgotten in my hand. The apartment felt very quiet suddenly, very empty despite there being two of us in it. I was in trouble, deep trouble. The weekend came and with it, answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of voices in the living room. I checked my phone 9:47 a.m. I'd slept in probably because I'd been up past 2 in the morning, my mind refusing to settle. I pulled on a hoodie over my t-shirt and ventured out, and there he was. The man from that night, sitting on our couch with a cup of coffee, talking to Marcus. In the daylight I could see him more clearly. He was handsome, very handsome, actually, with warm brown skin, expressive dark eyes, and an easy smile. He was wearing jeans and a fitted Henley that showed off a trim build. He looked comfortable here, like he belonged, and something about that made my stomach sink. Both of them looked up as I emerged from the hallway. "Morning, sleepyhead," Marcus said with a grin. "David, this is James. James, this is my roommate, David." James stood up and extended his hand. "Nice to finally meet you. Marcus talks about you all the time." I shook his hand, trying not to think about what all the time might mean. "Nice to meet you too." "I was just about to make breakfast," Marcus said. "You hungry?" "I'm thinking pancakes." Pancakes were my favorite, and Marcus knew it. The fact that he was offering to make them while James was here felt significant somehow, though I couldn't say exactly why. "Sure," I said, because refusing would have been weird. I ended up sitting at the kitchen counter while Marcus cooked and James perched on a stool beside me. He was friendly and easy to talk to, asking me about my work and sharing that he was a physical therapist at a clinic downtown. He had an easy laugh and a warm presence, and under different circumstances I would have liked him. As it was, I couldn't help but measure myself against him. He was more outgoing than me, more confident. He and Marcus had an easy banter that spoke of inside jokes and shared experiences. More than once, I caught Marcus smiling at something James said with that same unguarded expression I'd seen that night. They were close, really close, and I was the third wheel in my own apartment. After breakfast, James left to go to the gym and Marcus started cleaning up the kitchen. I helped, passing him plates to load into the dishwasher, and tried to seem normal. "So," Marcus said casually, "James and I are going to see a movie tonight, that new sci-fi thing that just came out. You want to come with?" The invitation surprised me. Wouldn't I be intruding? Marcus looked at me with genuine confusion. "Intruding on what? We're just seeing a movie. I thought you'd want to come. You mentioned wanting to see it last week." Had I? Probably. I'd been looking forward to it before everything had gotten complicated. "I don't want to be a third wheel," I said carefully. "David," Marcus turned to face me fully, his expression serious. "You wouldn't be a third wheel. James is my friend, you're my friend. Why wouldn't I want both of my friends there?" Friend, the word shouldn't have stung, but it did. "Okay," I heard myself say, "sure, I'll come." The movie was, actually, fun. I'd been prepared for awkwardness, for feeling left out, but James made an effort to include me in conversations, and Marcus seemed genuinely happy to have us both there. We got dinner afterward at a casual burger place and I found myself relaxing despite myself. "So Marcus tells me you're a software engineer," James said as we waited for our food. "That must be interesting." "It has its moments," I said. "Mostly it's a lot of staring at code trying to figure out why things aren't working." "Sounds like my job, except I'm staring at people trying to figure out why their bodies aren't working," James said with a grin. Marcus laughed, "Except David's code doesn't complain or cancel appointments." True, but it also doesn't get better and thank me when I fix it, I countered. Fair point. We fell into an easy conversation about work frustrations and victories. James told stories about particularly memorable patients without violating privacy. He was careful to note, and I found myself sharing the saga of a particularly stubborn bug I'd been chasing for 3 weeks. But the best feeling, James said, is when you help someone who really needs it. I had this patient last year, older woman who'd been in a car accident. She came in barely able to walk, convinced she'd never be independent again. 6 months of therapy and she completed a 5K. That's amazing, I said and meant it. It's why I do it? James smiled, but there was something softer in his expression now. It's easy to forget sometimes when you're dealing with insurance companies and paperwork and difficult cases, but moments like that remind you why it matters. Marcus was looking at James with clear admiration, and I felt that now familiar twist in my chest. They were good together. James was clearly a good person, someone who cared about others, someone who made Marcus happy. I should have been happy for Marcus. I wanted to be happy for Marcus, but instead I just felt hollow. Over the next few weeks, James became a more regular presence in the apartment. Not every day, but a few times a week he'd be there when I got home from work, or he'd show up on weekends. Marcus never specifically said they were dating, and I never asked, clinging to the thin hope that maybe they really were just friends. But the signs were there, the way they gravitated toward each other in a room. The casual touches, a hand on a shoulder, fingers briefly intertwined, the inside jokes that had multiplied. Once I came home to find them cooking dinner together, Marcus standing behind James with his arms around his waist, showing him how to properly chop an onion, both of them laughing at something. I'd retreated to my room immediately, unable to watch. The worst part was that I couldn't hate James. He was considerate, always asking if I wanted anything when he and Marcus ordered food. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, remembering details I'd mentioned in passing and asking follow-up questions later. He was exactly the kind of person I would have wanted to be friends with under any other circumstances. But every time I saw him, I was reminded that he had something I wanted, someone I wanted. My sleep got worse. I'd lie awake at night listening to the sounds of the apartment, wondering if James was staying over. Sometimes he was. And I'd hear their low voices through the walls, talking and laughing long into the night. Those were the worst nights, when my imagination would torture me with images of what else they might be doing. I knew I needed to do something. I couldn't keep living like this, couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while my feelings tangled themselves into increasingly complicated knots. But what were my options? I could move out, find a new place, make up some excuse about wanting to live alone or closer to work. It would solve the immediate problem of having to watch Marcus with James, but it felt like running away. Besides, Marcus and I had a lease through the end of the year, and breaking it would be complicated. I could tell Marcus how I felt. The idea terrified me. What would I even say? Hey, I know we've been roommates for almost a year and I know you're seeing James, but I've developed feelings for you that I don't know what to do with. Best case scenario, he'd let me down gently and things would be awkward forever. Worst case scenario, he'd want me to move out and I'd lose not just the hope of something more but also his friendship. I could try to move on, start dating, put myself out there, find someone else to focus on. But the thought felt empty. How was I supposed to move on when Marcus was right there, part of my daily life, impossible to avoid or forget? So I did nothing. I went to work, came home, existed in the same space as Marcus while trying to maintain the facade that everything was normal. It was exhausting. It was a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after I'd first met James, when things finally came to a head. I was in my room, supposedly working on a personal coding project but actually staring blankly at my screen when I heard the apartment door open. Marcus's voice called out, "David, you home?" "Yeah," I called back. "Can you come out here for a sec?" I found him in the living room, alone, looking uncharacteristically nervous. He was packing slightly, running a hand through his hair in the way he did when he was anxious. "What's up?" I asked, worry immediately spiking. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's fine, He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "I need to talk to you about something and I don't really know how to start." My heart was suddenly racing. Had he figured it out? Was he about to confront me about my feelings, tell me I needed to move out? "Okay," I said carefully, sitting down on the couch. Marcus sat down too, but on the other end, maintaining distance between us. I've been wanting to tell you something for a while now, but the timing never seemed right, and then it felt like too much time had passed to bring it up casually, and, he took a breath, I'm gay. I blinked. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, a coming out speech wasn't it. Oh, I said, trying to figure out how to respond. Should I pretend to be surprised? Thanks for telling me. He looked at me carefully. You don't seem shocked. Shit, I mean, I kind of figured, with James and everything. Something complicated crossed Marcus's face. Yeah, about that, he paused. James isn't my boyfriend. Now I was genuinely surprised. He's not. No, he's my cousin. I stared at him. Your cousin. Second cousin, technically, but we grew up together. He's basically like a brother to me. Marcus was watching my face closely. Did you think we were dating? Maybe, my mind was reeling, trying to recalibrate everything I'd assumed over the past month. You seemed really close. We are close, but not like that. He leaned forward slightly. David, is that why you've been weird lately? Did you think I was dating James and you didn't want him around? No, James is great. The words came out too quickly, too forcefully. I mean, he seems really nice. I have nothing against him. Then what's been going on with you? Marcus's voice was gentle but persistent. Because you have been weird, distant, you barely talk to me anymore, and when you do, it's like you're somewhere else, and I've been trying to give you space, but he trailed off, looking down at his hands. I miss you, I miss my friend. The words hit me right in the chest. He missed me. While I'd been busy nursing my hurt feelings and avoiding him, he'd been missing me. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I didn't mean to be distant, I've just been dealing with some stuff. What stuff? Maybe I can help. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine concern in his eyes. He cared about me, maybe not the way I wanted him to, but he cared, and he was trying to bridge this gap between us that I'd been widening for weeks. I could tell him the truth, the real truth, not just the surface truth. It was terrifying, but maybe it was also necessary. Maybe I was tired of hiding. Can I ask you something first? I heard myself say. Of course. When you said you wanted to tell me you were gay for a while, why now? What changed? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, James called me out on it. He came over last weekend after you'd gone to bed and he asked me why I hadn't told you yet, and I didn't have a good answer except that I was scared. Scared of what? That it would change things between us, that you'd be uncomfortable living with me, that I'd lose. He stopped, seeming to wrestle with something. That I'd lose whatever it is we have. My heart was pounding now. Why would you lose that? David, he said my name like it meant something. You're one of my favorite people. Living with you has been one of the best things about this year. You make me laugh, you're kind and thoughtful, and I feel like I can be myself around you. I was terrified that if I told you I was gay, all of that would go away. It wouldn't, I said firmly. Marcus, who you're attracted to doesn't change who you are. You're still the same person you were before you told me. I know that logically, but fear isn't always logical. No, I agreed softly, it isn't. We sat there in silence for a moment. I could feel the weight of my own truth pressing against my chest, demanding to be released. My turn to tell you something, I said before I could lose my courage. And I need you to let me get through it before you respond, okay? He nodded, his expression serious. I took a deep breath. A few weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night to get water, and I saw you and James in your room. I didn't mean to, and I'm sorry for invading your privacy, but I saw you two together and I thought you were dating. Marcus opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. Let me finish. When I thought you were dating James, I realized something about myself. I realized that I was jealous, not because I had a problem with you being gay, but because I had feelings for you that I didn't know how to deal with. I've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out what that means about me, about my sexuality, about everything. And I still don't have all the answers, but I know that I care about you as more than a friend. And I know that's probably really inconvenient timing given that you just came out to me, and I'm sorry if this makes things weird, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. The words hung in the air between us. I couldn't look at him, couldn't bear to see rejection or pity in his eyes. David, he said quietly, look at me. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Are you saying you have feelings for me? He asked. Yes, I whispered. Romantic feelings. Yes. He was quiet for so long I thought I might die from the suspense. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face, not a polite smile or a friendly smile but something else entirely, something that made my breath catch. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "The reason I was so scared to tell you I was gay wasn't just because I was afraid of losing your friendship. It was because I have feelings for you too, and I was terrified that if you knew I was gay, you'd figure out that I'd developed feelings for my straight roommate, and then things really would be weird." I stared at him. "You, what?" "I've had feelings for you for months, David. Since probably April. That weekend we drove upstate to go hiking and it rained the entire time, and instead of being annoyed, you just laughed about it and suggested we find a diner and play cards until the rain stopped. I think I started falling for you that day. But you never said anything. Because I thought you were straight. And then James kept pushing me to tell you I was gay, saying that even if you didn't feel the same way, I deserved to live authentically and not hide a fundamental part of myself from someone I cared about. So I finally worked up the courage to tell you tonight, and now you're telling me." He laughed, the sound slightly breathless. "David, are you seriously telling me we've both been pinning for each other for weeks?" The absurdity of it hit me and I started laughing too. "I think so. God, we're idiots." "The biggest idiots?" He was grinning now and he'd shifted closer on the couch, close enough that I could reach out and touch him if I wanted to. Did I want to? Yes, God, yes. "So what happens now?" I asked. "I don't know. What do you want to happen?" I considered the question. "I want to stop pretending I don't have feelings for you. I want to figure out what this means and where it goes. I paused, gathering courage. "I want to see if we could be something more than roommates." "I want that too," Marcus said softly. "But David, I need you to be sure. You said you're still figuring out your sexuality, and that's completely okay. But I don't want to be an experiment. I don't want to start something if you're going to decide in a few weeks that you're actually straight and this was just confusion." "It's not confusion," I said firmly. "I know how I feel about you, even if I'm still figuring out what that means for my understanding of myself. You're not an experiment, Marcus. You're you, and I care about you." He studied my face for a long moment and then he nodded. "Okay, then I think we should take this slow, really slow. We live together, and if this doesn't work out, we need to be able to still coexist." "Agreed, slow is good. And we need to communicate, really communicate. If either of us is feeling uncertain or overwhelmed or anything, we talk about it." "Absolutely. And maybe," he smiled, shy suddenly in a way I'd never seen him, "maybe we could start with a date, an actual intentional date where we're both clear about what it is." "I'd like that," I said. "I'd really like that." We sat there smiling at each other like idiots, and the air between us felt electric with possibility. Marcus shifted a little closer and I could smell his cologne, familiar and dizzying. "Can I?" he started, then stopped. "Would it be okay if I kissed you?" My heart felt like it might burst out of my chest. "Yeah, yes, please." He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind, but I didn't want to. I wanted this, wanted him, wanted to know what it felt like to kiss someone and have it mean everything. When his lips met mine, it was soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. I kissed him back and felt him smile against my mouth. The kiss deepened slightly, his hand coming up to cup my jaw, and it was sweet and perfect and absolutely nothing like I'd imagined. It was better. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing a little hard. Marcus rested his forehead against mine. He started. "Yeah, I agreed. We're really doing this." "I think so if you want to." "I want to," he said firmly. "I really, really want to." We spent the rest of the evening on the couch, talking about everything we'd been holding back. Marcus told me about the first time he'd realized he was attracted to men, in high school, and how hard it had been to accept that about himself. I told him about my relationship history, about Jessica and the others, and how none of them had ever felt quite right in a way I'd never been able to articulate until now. I said slowly, "I might be bisexual or maybe pansexual. I don't know exactly what label fits, and I'm not sure it matters right now. I know I've been attracted to women in the past, but I also know that what I feel for you is real and valid." "Labels are helpful when they're helpful and unnecessary when they're not," Marcus said. "You don't have to have everything figured out right now, you just have to be honest with yourself and with me." "I can do that." Good, he squeezed my hand. Because I'm in this, David, I'm really in this, but I need you to be in it too. I am, I promised, I'm in. Our first official date was the following Saturday. Marcus insisted on planning it, refusing to tell me where we were going no matter how much I tried to coax it out of him. It's a surprise, he said with a grin, just wear something casual and comfortable. He picked me up, which was hilarious since we lived together, but he insisted on the full experience, knocking on my bedroom door at 6 p.m. exactly. Your chariot awaits, he said with mock formality when I opened the door. You're ridiculous. You like it. I did, God help me, I really did. He drove us to a part of the city I didn't know well, eventually parking near a small art gallery I'd never heard of. There's an opening tonight for a local artist, he explained as we walked toward the building. Her work is incredible, she does these mixed media pieces that combine painting and sculpture. I thought you might like it. You thought right, I said, touched that he'd put so much thought into this. The gallery was small but packed with people, the walls covered in vibrant, dynamic pieces that seemed to pulse with energy. We wandered through the space, Marcus occasionally pointing out technical details I wouldn't have noticed on my own, the way the artist used negative space, how the colors worked together, the symbolism in recurring imagery. I didn't know you knew so much about art, I said. Architecture and art aren't that different, he replied. They're both about creating something meaningful in physical space, about the relationship between form and function, beauty and purpose. He paused in front of a particularly striking piece, a sculpture of a bird mid-flight made from reclaimed metal. This one reminds me of you, actually. How so? The way it's made of broken pieces that have been transformed into something new, something that can fly. He glanced at me. You're figuring out who you are, taking all these different parts of yourself and making something beautiful from them. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just took his hand, lacing our fingers together. He squeezed back and we stood there in comfortable silence, surrounded by art and possibility. After the gallery, we went to a small Ethiopian restaurant Marcus loved. We ordered too much food and fed each other bites from the shared platter, laughing when I tried the spicy option and immediately regretted it. You looked so confident, Marcus teased as I chugged water. I tried to warn you. I thought you were exaggerating. I never exaggerate about spice levels, that's a sacred trust. The dinner conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from our worst first date stories. Marcus once had a guy who spent the entire evening talking about his ex to our dreams for the future. I learned that Marcus wanted to eventually start his own architectural firm focused on sustainable, affordable housing. He learned that I'd once considered becoming a teacher before falling into software engineering. Would you ever go back to it, he asked, teaching? Maybe. Sometimes I think about it, especially when work gets frustrating. There's something appealing about helping people learn, watching that moment when something clicks for them. I paused. But I don't know, it feels like a big change. Big changes can be good though, Marcus said thoughtfully. Scary but good. Is that what this is, a big change? He considered the question. I think it's a change, definitely, but it also feels like coming home somehow, like all those months of living together were leading here and now we're finally in the right place. That's a very romantic way of putting it. I'm a very romantic person, he said with a grin, fair warning. I'll keep that in mind. After dinner, we walked through a nearby park, following a path lit by old-fashioned street lamps. The night was cool but not cold, perfect for walking close together, our shoulders occasionally brushing. Thank you for tonight, I said, this was perfect. It's not over yet, Marcus replied, one more stop. He led me to a small ice cream shop that was still open despite the late hour. We got cones, chocolate chip for him, mint chocolate chip for me, and sat on a bench overlooking a small pond where ducks were settling in for the night. Can I ask you something? Marcus said after a few minutes of companionable silence. Always. What was it like, realizing you had feelings for me? I thought about how to answer. Confusing at first, I'd never really questioned my sexuality before, so having these feelings for you was disorienting. But also, I paused, trying to find the right words. It felt right somehow, like a piece clicking into place. All those times I'd felt like something was missing in my previous relationships, I think I understand now why nothing felt quite right. I was trying to fit myself into a box that wasn't quite the right shape. And now I'm learning that there is no box, there's just what I feel, what's true for me. And what's true is that I care about you in a way I've never cared about anyone else. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I'm scared, he admitted softly. Of what? That I'm going to wake up and this will have been a dream, that something will happen to ruin this, that I'll do something wrong and lose you. He looked at me, vulnerability clear in his eyes. I've liked you for so long, David, the reality of actually being with you is almost too good to be true. I set down my ice cream and took both of his hands in mine. I'm scared too, this is new territory for me and I'm probably going to make mistakes, but I'm here and I'm real and this is really happening. We just have to trust each other and communicate like we said. You're right, he squeezed my hands, I'm probably overthinking this. You're allowed to overthink, I'll be overthinking right alongside you. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. We're going to be a mess, aren't we? Probably, but at least we'll be a mess together. We finished our ice cream and walked back to the car, hands linked, talking about nothing and everything. When we got back to the apartment, there was a moment of awkwardness at my bedroom door. Do we kiss goodnight? Do I invite him in? What are the rules here? Marcus seemed to sense my uncertainty. Thank you for tonight, he said softly. I had a really great time. Me too. We should do it again soon. Definitely. He leaned in and kissed me, soft and sweet, and when he pulled back he was smiling. Good night, David. Good night, Marcus. I went into my room and closed the door, then immediately flopped onto my bed with a grin I couldn't suppress. I felt like a teenager with a first crush, giddy and excited and full of possibility. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah, I went on a date tonight, a really good date. Her response came quickly, finally, tell me everything tomorrow, I knew something was up with you. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face, thinking about Marcus and ice cream and the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious. The next few weeks were a careful dance of figuring out what we were to each other. We went on more dates, museums, concerts, a comedy show that had us both laughing until we cried. But we also maintained the comfortable roommate dynamic that had worked for us before, cooking dinners together and watching TV on the couch. The difference was in the small moments, the way Marcus would kiss the top of my head when he passed behind me in the kitchen, how I'd find his hand seeking mine when we sat together, the good-night kisses that grew longer and more heated with each passing day until we were making out against my bedroom door like teenagers, pulling apart breathlessly before things could progress too far. We were taking it slow physically, which was Marcus's suggestion and something I appreciated more than I initially realized. It gave me time to process everything, to get comfortable with this new aspect of my identity, to simply enjoy the experience of being with him without pressure. There's no rush, Marcus said one evening when we'd been kissing on the couch and reluctantly pulled apart. We have time. I know, I want you to know that I want this, want you, I'm not holding back because I'm uncertain about that. I know, he brushed a strand of hair from my forehead, his touch gentle. But wanting something and being ready for it aren't always the same thing, we'll know when the time is right. He was right, of course, and in the meantime I was content to exist in this space of discovery and affection, learning Marcus in new ways. I learned that he liked to be the big spoon when we cuddled on the couch, that he got grumpy when he was hungry but would never admit it, just getting progressively more irritable until I forced him to eat something. That he had a terrible singing voice but loved to sing anyway, usually in the shower, usually off-key renditions of 80s power ballads. He learned that I was ticklish on my sides but would retaliate if he exploited that knowledge. That I needed at least 1 cup of coffee before I was capable of conversation in the morning. That I had a habit of unconsciously playing with his fingers when we held hands, tracing the lines of his palm. We learned each other, and in learning, we grew closer. About a month into officially dating, Marcus invited me to a party his classmates were throwing. It's an end-of-semester thing, he explained. Very casual, just people hanging out, probably too much cheap beer. You don't have to come if you don't want to, but I'd like it if you did. Are people going to know that we're together? I asked. Some of them, yeah, I've told my close friends about you, he studied my face. Is that okay? If you're not ready to be out publicly, I understand. I thought about it. A month ago, even a week ago, the idea would have terrified me, but now, no, it's okay, I want to go, I want to meet your friends, and I want them to know that we're together. His smile was brilliant. Yeah. The party was in a cramped apartment near campus, filled with architecture students who all seemed to know each other intimately. I felt out of place at first, but Marcus kept me close, introducing me to people with his hand on my lower back, a gesture that was both protective and proprietary. "This is David," he'd say, and the way he said my name made it clear I was someone important to him. My boyfriend. My boyfriend, we hadn't explicitly used that term before, and hearing it sent a thrill through me. Marcus's friends were welcoming, pulling me into conversations about everything from their shared frustration with a particularly demanding professor to their theories about which of their classmates were secretly hooking up. I met his closest friend from the program, a woman named Alicia who had a sharp wit and an immediately likable personality. "So you're the famous David," she said with a knowing grin. "Marcus has been talking about you for months. All good things, I hope." "Oh, definitely, sometimes annoyingly good things. David is so funny. David made this amazing pasta. David said the most interesting thing about urban planning." She laughed at Marcus's embarrassed expression. "I'm glad you two finally figured your shit out. The pinning was getting painful to watch." "You knew?" Marcus asked. "Honey, everyone knew. You lit up every time you mentioned him. It was adorable and also kind of nauseating." Later in the evening, I found myself on the apartment's tiny balcony, getting some air. The party was fun but loud, and I needed a moment to process. Marcus found me there a few minutes later. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I leaned back into him. "Yeah, just needed a breather. Your friends are great, by the way. They like you. Alicia texted me earlier to say you're a keeper." "High praise." "The highest." He kissed my shoulder. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know it's probably overwhelming meeting everyone at once. It's good though. I like seeing this part of your life, the people who are important to you." "You're important to me too," he said quietly. "You know that, right?" I turned in his arms to face him. "I do, and you're important to me, Marcus. I paused, the words on the tip of my tongue but suddenly feeling huge and significant. "What?" he prompted gently. "I think I'm falling in love with you," I said, the words coming out in a rush. "Actually, no, I don't think. I know, I'm falling in love with you, and it's scary and exciting, and I wanted you to know." His eyes were shining in the light spilling from the apartment. "David. You don't have to say it back," I added quickly. "I just wanted to tell you I don't want to hide how I feel anymore." "Can I tell you a secret?" he asked. "Always." "I'm not falling in love with you." My heart sank for a moment before he continued. "I already love you. I have for a while now. I was just waiting for the right moment to tell you." "This seems like a pretty good moment." "It really does." He cupped my face in his hands and kissed me deep and slow and full of promise. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. "I love you, David." "I love you too." We stood there on that balcony, holding each other and grinning like fools, and I thought about how much had changed since that night I'd woken up and seen him with James. How I'd thought my world was ending when really, it had just been beginning. Of course, not everything was perfect. Relationships never are, no matter how much you care about the other person. Our first real fight happened about 6 weeks into dating. It was stupid. The kind of argument that happens when two people are living together and one person's habit starts to grate on the other person's nerves. Marcus had a tendency to leave his architectural models and supplies spread across the dining table, and I'd asked him multiple times to clean them up when he was done working. "I will," he always said. "I'm just in the middle of something." But days would pass, and the models would remain, and I'd have to eat dinner on the couch because there was no room at the table. It came to a head one evening when I got home exhausted from a particularly frustrating day at work to find not just models, but also spilled coffee and scattered papers covering every inch of the table. "Marcus," I called out, probably sharper than necessary. He emerged from his room looking distracted. "What's up?" "The table, you said you'd clean it up 3 days ago." "I know, I'm sorry, I've just been really busy with finals coming up." "I'm busy too, but I still managed to clean up after myself." "It's not that big a deal, David, I'll get to it later." "That's what you always say." I was raising my voice now, all the frustration of my day and the past few weeks pouring out. "I feel like I'm living with a tornado. You leave stuff everywhere and I'm always the one cleaning up." That's not fair, I do my share of the housework. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like I do most of it while you're too busy with your projects to notice. My projects are my schoolwork, David, they're kind of important. And my time isn't. We glared at each other, both of us breathing hard, and I saw the moment Marcus's expression shifted from defensive to hurt. Is that what you really think, he asked quietly, that I don't value your time? The question deflated my anger. No, I admitted. I'm sorry, I had a bad day and I took it out on you. And I have been leaving my stuff around, Marcus acknowledged. You're right about that, I get so focused on my work that I don't notice the mess I'm creating. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment, neither of us quite sure how to move forward. I don't want to fight with you, I said finally. I don't want to fight with you either. He ran a hand through his hair. Can we start over? You just got home, you had a bad day, and you came home to a mess that I promised to clean up. That sucks and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry for yelling, you're right that your schoolwork is important, I shouldn't have dismissed that. How about this? Marcus suggested. I'll clean up the table right now, you order us some food, maybe take a shower and decompress. And then we can talk about how to better split household stuff so neither of us feels overwhelmed. It was such a reasonable suggestion that I felt silly for getting so worked up. That sounds good. He stepped closer and pulled me into a hug. I love you, even when we're fighting, I love you. I love you too. That night, after the table was clean and we'd eaten dinner, we had a real conversation about expectations and responsibilities. We created a cleaning schedule, designated specific spaces for Marcus's schoolwork, and agreed to be more communicative when something was bothering us before it built up into resentment. We're going to mess up sometimes, Marcus said as we lay on the couch together, my head on his chest. We're going to have bad days and say things we don't mean and get on each other's nerves. That's normal. I know, I just hate fighting with you. Me too, but I'd rather fight with you and work through it than pretend everything's fine when it's not. We promised to communicate, remember? I remembered. He kissed my forehead. We're going to be okay, this was just growing pains. He was right, we were okay, more than okay. The fight, as uncomfortable as it had been, actually brought us closer. It showed us that we could disagree without the relationship falling apart, that we could work through problems together. Another challenge came from an unexpected source, my mother. I'd always had a good relationship with my mom. We talked on the phone every week and I'd video chat with her and my dad every Sunday. But I'd been avoiding telling them about Marcus, not sure how they'd react. You need to tell them, Marcus said one Saturday morning as we made breakfast together. David, we've been dating for 3 months. At some point, your parents are going to wonder why you're being secretive. I know, what if they don't accept us? Then we'll deal with it together. He turned from the stove to look at me seriously. But you won't know until you tell them, and hiding this part of your life can't be good for you. He was right, of course, so that Sunday I called my parents early before our usual video chat time. David, my mom answered on the second ring, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine, I wanted to talk to you about something, is Dad there too? Hold on, let me get him. A moment later, both my parents were on the line, looking concerned. They were in their early 60s, my dad with graying hair and my mom with the same dark eyes I'd inherited. What's going on, son? My dad asked. I took a deep breath. I wanted to tell you that I'm dating someone. His name is Marcus and he's my roommate. We've been together for a few months now and it's serious. I think I might be bisexual, or at least I'm not straight, and I wanted you to know. There was a long silence. I watched my parents exchange a look I couldn't quite read. Well, my mom said finally, is he good to you? The question surprised me. What? This Marcus, is he treating you well? Does he make you happy? Yes, he makes me very happy. Then that's what matters, she said firmly. David, we love you, we want you to be happy. If Marcus makes you happy, then we want to meet him. You're okay with this? My dad leaned closer to the camera. Son, we've known you your whole life. We want you to live authentically, to be with someone who loves you for who you are. The gender of that person doesn't change how we feel about you. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Really? Really, my mom confirmed. Now tell us about him, what's he like? I spent the next hour talking about Marcus, his graduate program, his love of architecture, the way he made me laugh, how patient and understanding he'd been as I figured myself out. My parents listened attentively, asking questions and seeming genuinely interested. When I finally hung up, Marcus was waiting in the living room looking anxious. How did it go? They want to meet you. His eyes widened. They do. They were amazing, actually, supportive and kind and everything I could have hoped for. He pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so glad. I know you were worried. I was, but I should have had more faith in them. I pulled back to look at him. Thank you for pushing me to tell them you were right. I'm always right, he teased, then yelped when I poked him in the ribs. Don't get cocky. Too late. We ended up spending the rest of the day planning for my parents' visit the following month. Marcus was nervous about meeting them, which I found endearing. What if they change their minds when they meet me in person? He worried. They won't, they're going to love you. How can you be sure? Because I love you and they love me and they want me to be happy, and you make me happy. He smiled at that. You make me happy too. As the months passed, Marcus became increasingly integrated into all parts of my life and I into his. I became a regular at his architecture critiques, learning to understand the language of his craft. He came to my company's holiday party, charming my coworkers and making Sarah pull me aside to whisper, "He's perfect for you." We spent Thanksgiving with his family, a large, boisterous gathering that initially overwhelmed me but eventually won me over with their warmth. James was there, of course, and he gave me a knowing grin when he saw Marcus and me together. About time, he said, pulling me into a hug. I was starting to think I'd have to lock you two in a room together. You knew, I asked, though by this point, it seemed everyone had known except Marcus and me. Marcus talked about you constantly. It was pretty obvious he was into you. I'm glad you both figured it out. Marcus's parents were wonderful, treating me like I'd always been part of the family. His mother, a warm woman with the same smile as Marcus, pulled me aside while we were cleaning up after dinner. I want you to know, she said, how happy I am that Marcus found you. He's been through some difficult times in past relationships, but with you, he seems truly happy, settled in a good way. He makes me happy too, I told her. I love him very much. I can see that, the way you look at each other, she smiled. That's how my husband and I looked at each other when we first fell in love. Still do, actually, when we're not bickering about whose turn it is to take out the trash. I laughed. Marcus and I bicker about that too. Good, it means you're building a real life together. When December came, we went to visit my parents for Christmas. Marcus was nervous the entire drive there, fidgeting with the radio and asking me repeatedly if he looked okay. You look great, I assured him for the 10th time. They're going to love you, stop worrying. What if I say something stupid? What if I spill something? What if? Marcus, I reached over and took his hand. Breathe. These are my parents, not the judgment committee. They're going to love you because I love you and because you're lovable. He took a deep breath. Okay, I can do this. My parents lived in a small house in the suburbs, the same house I'd grown up in. When we pulled up, my mom was already opening the front door, waving enthusiastically. They're here, honey, she called back into the house. My dad appeared behind her and they both came out to greet us. My mom pulled me into a hug first, then turned to Marcus. You must be Marcus. David has told us so much about you. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Chen, Marcus said, shaking her hand. Oh, none of that, call me Linda, and this is Robert, she gestured to my dad. My dad shook Marcus's hand firmly. Good to meet you, son. David says you're studying architecture. And just like that they were off, my dad asking Marcus about his program while my mom ushered us inside, already talking about the dinner she'd prepared. The weekend went smoothly. Marcus fit seamlessly into my family's rhythms, helping with meal preparation and laughing at my dad's terrible jokes. He and my mom bonded over their shared love of old movies, staying up late one night to watch a classic film marathon while my dad and I played chess. I really like him, my mom told me the next morning while Marcus and my dad were outside looking at something in the garage. He's good for you, David. I can see it in the way you are together. He is good for me, I agreed. I'm lucky. You're both lucky, that's how it should be. On Christmas Eve, we were all sitting around the fireplace, drinking hot chocolate and exchanging stories when my mom brought out a photo album. "Oh no," I groaned, "not the baby pictures." "Especially the baby pictures," she said with a grin, settling next to Marcus on the couch. "Marcus, did you know David went through a phase where he refused to wear anything but a Superman costume?" "He did not," Marcus said, delighted. "He absolutely did. For 3 months when he was 4. We had to wash that costume every night because he insisted on wearing it to preschool." I covered my face with my hands. "This is mortifying." "This is amazing," Marcus corrected, grinning at a photo of me in a tiny Superman costume, cape and all. "Oh my God, look at your little face, you were so serious about it." "I was very committed to being a superhero." "You still are," Marcus said softly in a voice only I could hear, just in different ways. That night, lying in my childhood bed with Marcus beside me, my parents had given us my room while they slept in the guest room, a gesture of acceptance that meant more than they probably knew. I felt overwhelmingly grateful. "Thank you for coming here with me," I whispered in the dark. "Thank you for inviting me, your parents are wonderful. They love you, I can tell." "I love them too, and I love you." He found my hand under the covers, lacing our fingers together. "David, I know it's only been 6 months, but I can't imagine my life without you in it now. You've changed everything for me." "You've changed everything for me too. Before you, I was just going through the motions, I think. Working, living, but not really feeling alive. You made me feel alive." He turned to face me in the darkness. "I want to do that for you every day for as long as you'll let me." "That might be a very long time." "Good," he whispered and kissed me softly. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, and I dreamed of futures filled with possibility. When we returned to the apartment after the holidays, something had shifted. Maybe it was meeting each other's families or the lazy intimacy of those days away, but the relationship felt deeper, more solid. "I think," Marcus said one evening as we cooked dinner together, "we should talk about the future." "What about it?" "Well, our lease is up in March. We need to decide if we're renewing or if we want to look for a different place." I paused in chopping vegetables. We'd been so focused on the present that I hadn't really thought about the logistics of the future. "What do you want to do?" "Honestly, I'd like to find a new place. This apartment is great, but it's small, and if we're going to keep living together and I want to keep living together, I think we should find somewhere with a bit more space. Maybe an extra bedroom that can be an office or at least a bigger living area." "A place that's ours," I said slowly, "not just my apartment that you moved into." "Exactly, a fresh start but together." He looked at me carefully. "If that's what you want, I don't want to pressure you." "Marcus, I love living with you and I love the idea of finding a place that's ours that we choose together." I set down the knife and turned to face him fully. "I'm in this for the long term, I hope you know that." "I do, and I am too," he smiled. "So we're doing this, we're apartment hunting." "We're apartment hunting." We spent the next few weeks looking at places, a process that was both exciting and exhausting. Some apartments were too expensive, others too small or too far from Marcus's campus and my office. But finally we found it, a 2-bedroom in a slightly older building with hardwood floors, big windows, and a kitchen that was significantly bigger than our current one. "This is it," Marcus said, standing in the middle of the empty living room, turning in a slow circle. "David, this is perfect." I could see it too. I could imagine our furniture here, our life here. I could picture lazy Sunday mornings and dinner parties with friends and quiet evenings on the couch. "Let's do it," I said. We signed the lease that week and spent the next month planning and packing. The move itself was chaotic, with James and several of Marcus's classmates helping to haul boxes up 3 flights of stairs. But when everything was finally in place, when our furniture was arranged and our belongings unpacked, I stood in our new living room and felt something settle in my chest. Home, this was home. "Hey," Marcus said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About how happy I am. About how crazy it is that a year ago I didn't even know I could feel this way about someone. About how grateful I am that you were patient with me while I figured it out." "You were worth waiting for," he said simply. "David, can I tell you something?" "Always." I want to spend my life with you. I know it's early to be talking about things like that, and I'm not saying we need to rush into anything. But I want you to know that when I think about my future, you're in it, every part of it. I turned in his arms to face him. I feel the same way. You're it for me, Marcus. I don't know what the future holds exactly, but I know I want you in it. Good, he said and kissed me. Later that night, after we'd christened our new apartment by making love in our new bedroom, slow and tender and perfect, we lay tangled together, talking in the way we often did after. I've been thinking, Marcus said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder, about coming out more publicly, to my extended family, to people from high school, maybe even on social media. Yeah, what brought this on? Being with you, feeling proud of our relationship and not wanting to hide it. I've been out to my close friends and family for years, but there are still people in my life who don't know, and I'm tired of that compartmentalization. How can I support you in that? Just be here, be you, and know that when I tell people about my life, I'm going to be telling them about you, about us. I'm honored to be part of your story, I said softly. You're more than part of it, you're the best chapter. As spring turned to summer, we settled into our new apartment and the rhythms of our relationship. Marcus graduated from his master's program, landing a job at a prestigious architecture firm that specialized in sustainable design. I got a promotion at work, taking on more responsibility and a team to manage. We navigated the challenges of two demanding careers, learning when to push each other and when to simply be supportive. We developed systems, meal planning on Sundays, alternating who did dishes, setting aside Friday nights as us time, no matter how busy the week had been. We also navigated the challenges of being in an openly queer relationship. Most of the time, it was fine. Our friends were supportive, our families were loving, and in our liberal city, we could hold hands walking down the street without attracting much attention. But there were moments. A man who muttered something under his breath as we kissed goodbye outside a restaurant. A woman who pointedly moved her children away from us at the park. Online comments on photos Marcus posted that ranged from confused to hostile. It gets to me sometimes, Marcus admitted one night after he'd received a particularly nasty comment on a photo of us at a Pride event. Not the comments themselves, I can ignore bigots, but the reminder that there are people out there who think our relationship is wrong or disgusting or whatever. I know, I said, because I felt it too. It was one thing to know abstractly that homophobia existed, it was another to have it directed at you and someone you loved. But then I look at you, he continued, and I think about how happy I am, how right this feels, and I realize I don't care what those people think. Their opinions don't get to define us or diminish what we have. No, they don't, I agreed. We define us, and what we have is real and good and worth any amount of negativity from people who don't understand. He smiled. When did you get so wise? I've been learning from you. We also had joyful moments. Pride Month was a revelation, our first time experiencing it as a couple. We attended the parade with James and several friends wearing rainbow colors and cheering for the floats. Seeing so many queer people celebrating openly, seeing families and allies showing up to support, it moved me in ways I hadn't expected. Look at all these people, I said to Marcus as we watched the parade pass by, all these people living authentically, being themselves. You're one of them now, Marcus said, squeezing my hand. We both are. We were one of them, part of this community, this history, this ongoing fight for recognition and rights. It felt significant in a way I couldn't fully articulate. That night, at a Pride after-party in someone's backyard, I was talking to one of Marcus's friends about my journey of self-discovery when a young guy, probably early 20s, overheard. Can I ask you something? He said hesitantly. I hope this isn't weird, but how did you know that you weren't straight? I mean, I've been struggling with that question for a while now. I looked at Marcus, who was across the yard talking to someone else, but caught my eye and smiled. Honestly, I didn't know until I met someone who made me question everything I thought I knew about myself, and even then it took me a while to accept it. But eventually I realized that labels matter less than living honestly. I care about who I care about, and that person happens to be a man. That's my truth. But weren't you scared of what it meant, of how people would react? Terrified, I admitted. Still am sometimes. but I'm more scared of not being true to myself, of missing out on the relationship I have because I was too afraid to embrace who I really am." He nodded slowly, processing this. "Thank you for sharing that. It helps to hear from someone who's been through it." After he walked away, Marcus came over and slipped an arm around my waist. "That was good of you, sharing your experience. It felt important. I remember how lost I felt at the beginning, how much I needed to hear that it was okay to be confused and scared and figuring things out. You've come a long way from the guy who accidentally saw me with my cousin and had an identity crisis," Marcus teased. "Hey, that was a very formative moment for me. It was formative for both of us. It's what finally pushed me to be honest with you. Best accidental invasion of privacy ever." He laughed and pulled me closer. "I love you, David Chen." "I love you too, Marcus Williams." A year after we moved into our apartment, Marcus planned a weekend trip. He said it was to celebrate our anniversary, which technically wasn't for another month, but I didn't question it. We drove upstate to the same area where we'd gone hiking on that rainy weekend early in our friendship. "Full circle," I said as we pulled up to the trailhead. "Something like that," Marcus replied with a smile that seemed to carry a secret. The weather was perfect this time, sunny and warm with a cool breeze coming off the mountains. We hiked for several hours, talking and laughing, stopping occasionally to take photos or admire the view. Finally, we reached a clearing with a spectacular vista overlooking a valley. Marcus had packed a picnic, and we sat on a flat rock eating sandwiches and fruit while the world spread out below us. "David," Marcus said after we'd been sitting in comfortable silence for a while, "can I tell you something?" "Always." "That rainy weekend when we came up here and ended up playing cards in that diner, that was the day I realized I was in love with you. I'd been attracted to you before that, had feelings I was trying to ignore. But that day, watching you laugh about our ruined hiking plans, seeing how you turned a disappointment into an adventure, that's when I knew." "I didn't know that," I said softly. "I couldn't tell you then. You were straight, or I thought you were, and I was your roommate. It seemed impossible, but I held on to that feeling, hoped that someday I'd be able to tell you. You can tell me anything now." "I know, and that's the point." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small box. My heart immediately started racing. "David, you've changed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined. You've made me braver, happier, more myself. You've built a life with me, accepted all my quirks and flaws, and loved me anyway. And I want to spend the rest of my life doing the same for you." He opened the box, revealing two simple, elegant rings. "Will you marry me?" I stared at the rings, at Marcus, at the hope and love clear in his eyes, and felt tears spilling down my cheeks. "Yes," I said, my voice breaking. "Yes, of course, yes." He was crying too as he slipped one of the rings onto my finger. I took the other ring and slid it onto his, my hands shaking slightly. "I love you so much," I said. "I can't believe this is real." "It's real, you're real, we're real, and now we're getting married." We kissed there on that mountaintop, the same place where Marcus had first realized he loved me, and I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that night I'd woken up and seen him with James, thinking I'd lost something I didn't even know I wanted, to this moment, promising to spend forever together. "Can I tell you something?" I said when we finally pulled apart. "Anything." "That night when I thought you were dating James, I was devastated. It felt like the universe was playing the cruelest joke, showing me what I wanted right as I lost any chance of having it. But now I'm grateful for it." "Grateful?" "Because it forced me to confront my feelings, to acknowledge them instead of pushing them away. If I hadn't seen you two that night, I might have kept denying what I felt. I might have convinced myself it was just friendship, and I would have missed out on this on us." Marcus kissed my forehead. "Everything led us here, all the confusion and fear and uncertainty, it was all part of the path to this moment. I wouldn't change any of it," I said, "not 1 second." "Me neither." We stayed on that mountain until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We talked about wedding plans and the future, about where we wanted to live long-term and whether we wanted kids, and all the big and small questions that come with promising forever. When we finally hiked back down, the rings on our fingers catching the last light of day, I felt lighter than I had in my entire life. Not because all my questions were answered or because the path ahead was clear, but because I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Epilogue 2 years later. The venue was perfect. Marcus had helped design the space himself, working with the owners to transform an old warehouse into a beautiful event venue with exposed brick and lots of natural light. Now it was decorated with flowers, simple and elegant, white and green, and filled with people we loved. I stood at the altar watching guests arrive and take their seats. My parents were in the front row, my mom already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue even though the ceremony hadn't started yet. Marcus's family filled several rows. His younger siblings arguing about something in whispers that made his mother give them a warning look. Sarah was my best man, looking sharp in a tailored suit. She caught my eye and grinned. "You ready for this?" "More than ready." James appeared beside her. He was one of Marcus's groomsmen and clapped me on the shoulder. "This is it, man. You two have come a long way from that night you thought we were dating." "We really have," I agreed. We'd turned it into a running joke in our group, the absurd comedy of errors that had started everything. The music changed and everyone stood, and there was Marcus walking down the aisle with his parents, looking so handsome in his dark suit that my breath caught. When he reached the altar and took my hands, he was smiling through tears. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi yourself." The ceremony was a blur of beautiful words and promises made in front of everyone who mattered to us. We'd written our own vows, and when it was my turn to speak, I looked into Marcus's eyes and said, "I promise to love you in all the ways I'm still learning and all the ways I already know. I promise to build a life with you that's full of laughter and adventure and quiet mornings. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your home, today and every day after." Marcus's vows promised similar things, support and love and partnership, but ended with, "And I promise to clean up my architectural models, most of the time." Everyone laughed, including me, and then we were exchanging rings and kissing as married men, and the room erupted in applause and cheers. At the reception, after dinner and toasts and the first dance, I found myself on the balcony with Marcus, stealing a moment alone together. "How are you feeling, husband?" I asked. "Perfectly happy, husband," he replied, pulling me close. "This is everything I wanted." "Me too." We stood there, looking out at the city lights, and I thought about how far we'd come. From confused roommates to best friends to lovers to this, married, building a life together, promising forever. "Do you remember what you said to me that night I proposed?" Marcus asked. "About being grateful for the night you thought I was dating James." "I do. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about how the things we think are endings are sometimes actually beginnings. How the moments we think we're losing something are actually when we're finding what we were always meant to have." "That's very philosophical of you." "I'm a romantic, you knew that when you married me," he grinned, then grew more serious. "I just want you to know that I'm grateful too, for every moment that led us here, for your courage in accepting yourself, for taking a chance on us." "It wasn't a chance," I said. "It was a certainty. You were always it for me, Marcus, from the moment I stopped being scared enough to admit it. And you were it for me from a rainy weekend and a diner full of terrible coffee." "The coffee really was terrible." "The worst," he agreed, "but the company was perfect." Inside, someone called for us. They were about to cut the cake, and apparently we were needed. We reluctantly pulled apart and headed back to the party, to our friends and family, to the celebration of everything we'd built together. Later that night, as we left the reception in a car decorated with "Just Married" signs, I looked back at the venue, at the glowing windows and the people still dancing inside. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked. "That I woke up in the middle of the night once and saw something that changed my entire life. Best midnight water run ever. Without question." He took my hand and we drove off into our future together, a future that had started with confusion and uncertainty but had led to this: love, partnership, and the promise of forever with the person who made me most myself. And really, what more could anyone ask for? The end.